Welcome to this journey through one of the most disturbing cases recorded in the history of New Orleans. Before we begin, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact time you're listening to this narration. We're interested to know what places and what times of day or night these documented stories reach. The Garden District of New Orleans stands as a testament to Southern opulence, its oak-lined streets whispering secrets from another time. But beneath the grandeur of these antebellum mansions lies a darker history, one that the city has tried desperately to forget. This is the story of Benjamin Cole's plantation, located just west of what is now known as Magazine Street, and the events of 1842 that would remain buried for half a century. According to parish records from St. Charles Avenue Church, Benjamin Cole arrived in New Orleans in 1834, having acquired considerable wealth through shipping interests in Charleston. The records indicate he purchased 7 acres of prime land and began construction on what contemporaries described as a residence of particular distinction. Cole's business dealings brought him into the upper echelons of New Orleans society, a fact documented in the society pages of the Louisiana Courier, which mentioned his attendance at no fewer than 24 social gatherings in 1835 alone. What set Cole's property apart from neighboring estates was not merely its architectural beauty, but the unusual layout of the quarters that housed those enslaved on his property. Unlike the typical arrangement where such quarters would be visible from the main house, Cole had them constructed in a secluded hollow behind a grove of cypress trees, approximately 400 yards from the main residence. This detail comes to us from the surveyor's documentation filed with the Orleans Parish Land Records Office in 1835. Benjamin Cole married Anna Lewis, daughter of a prominent Baton Rouge family, in the spring of 1836. Their union was announced in the Daily Picayune, which described the bride as a woman of exceptional beauty and refined sensibilities. The couple would go on to have no children, a fact that would later become significant to our story. By all official accounts, the Cole plantation operated without incident until the autumn of 1842. Tax records from that year show that the property was home to 28 enslaved individuals, primarily engaged in maintaining the grounds and serving in the household. The Coles were known for their elaborate dinner parties, which, according to the journals of Elizabeth Thornton, a frequent guest, were affairs of exceptional taste, though marked by an unusual quietude among the servants. On the morning of October 17, 1842, something extraordinary occurred. According to a report filed with the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office, Benjamin Cole summoned authorities to report that the entire population of his slave quarters had vanished overnight. The report, filed by Deputy Sheriff Thomas Wilkins, notes that Cole claimed to have retired at the usual hour, only to be awakened by his kitchen manager at dawn with news that not a soul could be found in the quarters. The initial assumption was that this was a mass escape, an event unprecedented in scale for the region. The Orleans Parish Gazette reported that Mr. Cole's property has experienced a most unusual disappearance, with upwards of 25 Negroes having absconded in the night. A search party was organized, consisting of neighboring plantation owners and local lawmen, but not a single footprint was found leading from the property. What makes this case particularly disturbing is not merely the disappearance itself, but the condition in which the quarters were found. According to Sheriff Wilkins' report, each dwelling was left in a state suggesting no preparation for departure. Personal effects remained in place, meals were half prepared, and in one instance, a garment was found mid-stitch. The report goes on to note that no doors stood open, and the ground surrounding the quarters bore no evidence of hasty departure or struggle. Within the community, whispers began to circulate. The diary of Reverend Jonathan Pierce, minister at St. Charles Avenue Church, records that Brother Cole appears deeply affected by the loss of his property, though his wife maintains a composure that some find curious. This entry, dated October 23, 1842, is one of the few contemporaneous accounts that mentions Anna Cole's reaction to the event. The official investigation concluded within 3 weeks. With no evidence of foul play and no leads as to the whereabouts of the missing individuals, the case was classified as a mysterious absconding. Benjamin Cole filed an insurance claim for his lost property, which was granted in December of that year. The quarters themselves were demolished shortly thereafter, according to parish construction permits, and the area was converted into an ornamental garden. Life at the Cole plantation appeared to return to normal. Benjamin's shipping business continued to thrive, and Anna remained active in New Orleans society. Yet there were subtle changes noted by those who frequented their home. Elizabeth Thornton's journal entry from February 1843 observes that the Coles no longer entertain as they once did, The house seems oppressively silent, and Anna's once vibrant demeanor has taken on a quality I can only describe as watchful. The true horror of what happened at the Cole plantation might have remained forever hidden were it not for the events that unfolded nearly 50 years later. In 1891, the property, which had changed hands several times after Benjamin Cole's death in 1867, was purchased by James Harrington, a prominent New Orleans physician. Dr. Harrington's intention was to renovate the aging mansion, which had fallen into some disrepair. During these renovations, workers made a disturbing discovery. According to an article published in the Daily Picayune on July 12, 1891, excavation for a new drainage system revealed a sealed chamber beneath what was once an ornamental garden on the property. The article goes on to describe how this chamber, approximately 30 feet by 40 feet in dimension, was accessible only through a narrow passage that had been deliberately concealed beneath a decorative fountain. What the workers found inside this chamber defies explanation. The room contained the remains of 27 individuals. According to the coroner's report filed on July 15, 1891, the bodies were in a state of remarkable preservation, owing to the unusual dryness of the underground space. Most disturbing was the arrangement of these remains. They were positioned throughout the chamber in poses suggesting ordinary activities, some seated at tables, others appearing to be engaged in various tasks. The coroner, Dr. William Blackburn, noted in his report that no obvious cause of death can be determined for any of the subjects. There are no signs of violence or struggle. Indeed, the expressions preserved on some of the faces suggest they were unaware of their fate, even in its final moments. The report concluded that the deaths likely occurred simultaneously and suddenly, though the mechanism remained a mystery. News of the discovery sent shockwaves through New Orleans society. Many of the city's older families, who had known the Coles personally, refused to comment publicly. The Daily Picayune reported that certain prominent citizens have suggested the chamber should be sealed again without further investigation, citing respect for the dead. Despite these pressures, authorities proceeded with their inquiry. Among the personal effects found in the chamber was a journal preserved in a sealed metal box. This journal, attributed to Anna Cole based on comparison with her known handwriting from church records, contained entries dating from 1840 to 1843. The final pages of this document were published in the Daily Picayune, despite protests from several prominent families, on July 20, 1891. The entry dated October 16, 1842, the day before the reported disappearance, is particularly chilling. Anna wrote, "Benjamin has completed his preparations. He assures me this final experiment will silence the voices that have plagued him since childhood. I have assisted as required, though my conscience grows heavier with each passing hour. The substance has been added to their evening meal, just as the doctor prescribed. I watched from the window as they returned to their quarters. Now we wait. This journal entry implicated both Benjamin and Anna Cole in whatever tragedy befell those 27 individuals. However, the precise nature of the substance mentioned and the experiment referenced remain unclear. The journal was subsequently seized by authorities and, according to official records, was transferred to the Orleans Parish Archives. However, when researchers attempted to access it in 1922, it was reported missing from the collection. Further investigation of the chamber revealed additional disturbing details. According to the police report, the room contained an elaborate ventilation system, suggesting it was designed for prolonged occupation. More chillingly, investigators found evidence that at least some of the victims may have lived for days or even weeks within the sealed space. Food provisions were discovered, along with containers that appeared to have held water. Dr. James Harrington, the property's owner at the time of discovery, commissioned a memorial to be placed on the grounds, though it was removed just 3 years later at the request of subsequent owners. In an interview with the Daily Picayune in 1893, Dr. Harrington stated that certain disturbances of an unexplainable nature had prompted him to sell the property, though he declined to elaborate further. The case attracted the attention of Dr. Theodore Reynolds, a professor of chemistry at Tulane University. After reviewing the coroner's findings, Dr. Reynolds published a paper in 1892 suggesting that the victims may have been subject to an experimental compound designed to induce a death-like state of suspended animation. His theory proposed that Benjamin Cole had never intended permanent harm, but that something had gone catastrophically wrong with his experiment. This theory gained little traction and was dismissed by most of his colleagues as speculative. What lends particular weight to the theory of chemical experimentation is a series of invoices discovered among Benjamin Cole's business papers during the investigation. These invoices, from a pharmaceutical supplier in Philadelphia, documented the purchase of several uncommon chemical compounds in the months leading up to October 1842. Among these was a significant quantity of a substance labeled only as E-extract, which remains unidentified. A search of Benjamin Cole's personal library, catalogued during the investigation, revealed an unusual collection of texts on human physiology, chemical compounds, and several volumes on ancient Egyptian mummification techniques. According to the inventory conducted by Officer Henry Merritt, these books showed evidence of frequent consultation, with numerous passages marked and annotated in Mr. Cole's hand. The most compelling piece of evidence regarding Benjamin Cole's state of mind comes from a letter discovered in the possession of his former business partner, William Tanner. This letter, dated August 3, 1842, contains a passage in which Cole writes, "My experiments have progressed to a stage where practical application must be considered. The preservation of consciousness beyond the traditional boundaries of life remains my ultimate goal. Anna expresses reservation, yet she understands the significance of this work." What remains unexplained is why Benjamin Cole would conceal his actions by reporting the disappearance to authorities. One theory, proposed by historian Margaret Sinclair in her 1962 analysis of the case, suggests that Cole's experiment yielded results so unexpected and disturbing that he could not bear to face what he had done. The false report of an escape provided a convenient cover and allowed him to literally bury his actions. The investigation into the chamber and its contents was abruptly halted in September 1891. According to a brief notice in the Daily Picayune, the case was closed by order of the mayor's office, with all remains to be interred in a common grave at St. Louis Cemetery No. 3. No markers or records of this burial exist in the cemetery's documentation, leading some researchers to question whether the remains were ever properly laid to rest. In the years following the discovery, the Cole mansion changed ownership frequently. Between 1891 and 1910, the property had no fewer than 7 different owners, none residing there for more than 3 years. Rumors of unusual occurrences plagued the estate, though such stories were dismissed by authorities as sensationalism, fueled by the property's grim history. One former resident, whose name was withheld in a 1905 interview with the Daily Picayune, claimed to have heard the sounds of multiple voices engaged in hushed conversation, emanating from the sealed area where the chamber had been discovered. This resident also reported the sensation of being observed while alone in the home, and objects being rearranged when no one was present. The Cole mansion was ultimately demolished in 1912 to make way for residential development. During the demolition process, workers reported discovering a small room concealed within the walls of the master bedroom. According to the foreman's account, published in the Daily Picayune, this room contained only a desk, a chair, and a mirror. The walls were covered with handwritten notes described as incomprehensible formulas and diagrams. Before these could be properly documented, a fire broke out, destroying the remaining structure and all contents. The land where the Cole plantation once stood is now occupied by several residences along what is now Britannia Street. Residents have occasionally reported unusual occurrences, though none have been officially documented. In 1958, during the installation of a swimming pool at one of these properties, workers uncovered what appeared to be a portion of the original foundation of the slave quarters. According to their testimony, the stone was unusually cold to the touch, despite the summer heat. The Cole case attracted renewed interest in 1968, when historian Dr. Elizabeth Montgomery attempted to locate Anna Cole's journal for further study. Her search led her to a descendant of Deputy Sheriff Thomas Wilkins, who had kept unofficial copies of several documents related to the case. Among these was a transcript of Anna Cole's final journal entry, dated March 3, 1843, which had never been publicly released. This entry reads, "I can bear this burden no longer." Benjamin remains convinced that his experiment was a success, that those poor souls exist now in some state between life and death. He speaks of consciousness preserved, of minds aware but bodies frozen. He visits the chamber nightly, convinced he can hear their thoughts. Last night he claimed they are speaking to him, begging for release. I fear his mind is lost. More terribly, I fear he may be right. Montgomery's research was cut short when she suffered a stroke while working in the Louisiana State Archives. According to colleagues, she had just uncovered a file containing Benjamin Cole's private correspondence. This file was reported missing during a subsequent inventory and has never been located. Montgomery recovered, but claimed to have no memory of what she had discovered in the hours before her stroke. In 1962, during renovations to the St. Charles Avenue Church, workers discovered a hidden compartment behind the altar containing a sealed box. Inside was a letter, purportedly written by Reverend Jonathan Pierce in 1843. The letter, addressed to his successor, contained a troubling account. "I have heard Benjamin Cole's confession, though I take no comfort in it. He speaks of souls captured between worlds, of consciousness preserved while the body appears lifeless. He believes he has found the secret to eternal life through a most unnatural means. I cannot absolve such sins, nor can I report them without bringing destruction upon this parish. I leave this testament sealed, that future generations might know the truth." The credibility of this letter has been questioned by historians, as the paper appears newer than would be expected from an 1843 document. However, analysis conducted in 1964 by Dr. Robert Chambers of Tulane University concluded that the ink and compositional elements are consistent with materials available in the mid-19th century. The letter currently resides in the Louisiana Historical Society's private collection. What happened at the coal plantation in October 1842? The most straightforward explanation, that Benjamin Cole, perhaps with Anna's assistance, drugged and then entombed 27 people as part of a deranged experiment, seems almost too horrific to contemplate. Yet the evidence points clearly in this direction. What remains less clear is whether Cole believed his victims were dead when he concealed them, or whether, as Anna's final journal entry suggests, he thought them to be in some state of suspended animation. The case takes an even darker turn when one considers the possibility that Cole's victims may have been conscious during their entombment. The arrangement of the bodies in lifelike poses, the presence of food and water, and the sophisticated ventilation system all suggest that Cole may have intended them to survive for some period. The coroner's observation that many appeared unaware of their fate, even at the end, lends weight to the theory that they were maintained in an altered state of consciousness. Perhaps most disturbing is the implication in Anna's journal that Benjamin continued to visit the hidden chamber for months after the disappearance. What transpired during these visits? Did he observe his victims, communicate with them, continue his experiments? These questions remain unanswered, as do the circumstances surrounding Benjamin Cole's own death in 1867. The official cause was listed as apoplexy, yet rumors persisted that he took his own life. Anna Cole survived her husband by nearly 20 years, living in seclusion at her family's property in Baton Rouge. According to local accounts, she rarely spoke and never received visitors. Her death in 1885 went largely unremarked, with only a brief obituary noting her passing. The executor of her estate reported finding her personal papers already burned in the fireplace upon arriving to settle her affairs. In the decades since the discovery of the hidden chamber, various theories have emerged to explain the Cole incident. Some historians have suggested that Benjamin was attempting to develop methods of preserving human life during yellow fever outbreaks, which were common in New Orleans at the time. Others have proposed more sinister motives, suggesting that Cole was influenced by obscure philosophical texts that advocated the pursuit of immortality through experimental means. Whatever Benjamin Cole's motives, the facts remain deeply troubling. 27 individuals vanished from his property in 1842, only to be discovered half a century later in a purpose-built underground chamber. The evidence strongly suggests they were the victims of chemical experimentation that led to their deaths that Benjamin Cole concealed through an elaborate deception. The Cole case stands as one of the most disturbing chapters in New Orleans history, a history already rich with tales of darkness and tragedy. It serves as a reminder of the terrible price paid by those deemed property rather than people, and of the lengths to which human beings will go in pursuit of forbidden knowledge. The hidden chamber beneath the ornamental garden has long since been sealed and built over, but the questions it raised remain unanswered. As for the Cole mansion itself, nothing remains but foundations buried beneath modern homes. Yet residents of Prytania Street occasionally report unusual phenomena, cold spots that persist even in summer heat, the sound of whispered conversations when no one is present, and most commonly, dreams of being trapped in a dark space while fully conscious but unable to move. These reports are dismissed by authorities as urban legends born of the area's known history, yet they persist. In 1959, during the construction of a garage at one Prytania Street residence, workers uncovered what appeared to be a metal box. According to their testimony, the box contained a single item, a small glass vial filled with a dark substance. Before this discovery could be reported to authorities, the box and its contents disappeared from the construction site. The worker who initially found the box suffered from unexplained seizures for several months afterward and claimed to experience visions of people frozen in time, aware but unable to cry out. The final documented investigation into the Cole case was conducted by Professor James Harrison of Tulane University in 1967. His research focused primarily on identifying the chemical compounds Benjamin Cole might have used in his experiments. Based on the descriptions in Anna's journal and the invoices from Philadelphia, Harrison theorized that Cole had developed a compound derived from plant alkaloids known to induce paralysis. His research paper, submitted to the Journal of Historical Toxicology, was rejected for publication on grounds of speculative methodology. Harrison continued his research independently, reportedly attempting to recreate the compound based on his understanding of Cole's work. In February 1968, Harrison failed to appear for his scheduled lectures. When colleagues checked his residence, they found him seated at his desk, unresponsive but showing vital signs. Medical reports indicate he remained in this catatonic state for 11 days before suddenly regaining consciousness. Upon recovery, Harrison resigned his position at Tulane and refused all requests to discuss his research or experience. The Cole case remains officially closed, the deaths attributed to unknown causes in parish records. The documents relating to the case were reportedly archived at the Louisiana Historical Society, but attempts by researchers to access them in 1970 and again in 1982 found no trace of the collection. According to the curator's statement, the files were either misplaced during reorganization or removed by unknown parties. What are we to make of this dark chapter in New Orleans history? The evidence points to a terrible crime committed out of some twisted pursuit of knowledge, yet questions linger. If Benjamin Cole's experiment involved inducing a death-like state, is it possible that his victims were not dead when entombed? Could they have remained in some state of suspended animation, aware but paralyzed, for some period before death finally claimed them? The arrangement of the bodies in lifelike poses suggests a chilling possibility that Cole was creating a tableau of daily life, frozen in time. Anna's final journal entry suggests that whatever Benjamin believed he had achieved, it tormented him in his final years. Did guilt eventually overcome scientific fascination, or did he continue to view his victims as mere subjects in his grand experiment? We may never know the full truth of what transpired on that October night in 1842, or in the hidden chamber during the years that followed. As with many dark episodes in history, the Cole case has faded from public memory. The properties along Prytania Street, where the plantation once stood, are now valued residences in the Garden District, their connection to the tragedy largely forgotten. Yet something of the past perhaps remains, embedded in the soil and stone of that place. Those who live there speak of unusual dreams, of the sensation of being observed, of whispers just beyond the threshold of hearing. In New Orleans, a city where the past and present exist in closer proximity than most places, such stories are often dismissed as part of the colorful local folklore. But for those who have studied the Cole case in detail, these persistent accounts take on a more disturbing significance. They suggest that whatever Benjamin Cole set in motion that autumn night continues to reverberate through time, a ripple in the fabric of reality that has never fully subsided. Perhaps the most fitting epitaph for this tragic episode comes from Anna Cole's own journal, in an entry dated November 1st, 1842. What has been done cannot be undone. Those who were silenced remain silent, yet I feel the weight of their mute accusation. Benjamin speaks of scientific triumph, but I see only the hubris of playing God. There are boundaries humans were never meant to cross, doors never meant to be opened. We have stepped through such a door, and I fear we can never return. The true horror of the cold case lies not just in the actions of Benjamin and Anna, but in the questions those actions continue to raise. What is the nature of consciousness? Can it exist beyond the traditional boundaries of life and death? And most terrifying of all, could awareness persist even when all outward signs of life have ceased? These are questions that science still grapples with today, questions that the events at the coal plantation force us to confront in their most disturbing form. As night falls over New Orleans' Garden District, the old oak trees cast long shadows over Prytania Street. The houses stand silent and elegant, giving no hint of the darkness that once unfolded on this ground. Yet for those who know the story, who have delved into the fragmented records and testimonies, there remains an unease that no amount of time can fully dispel. For buried beneath the manicured lawns and historic homes lies the echo of a boundary crossed, a terrible knowledge pursued, and 27 souls whose final moments remain shrouded in a mystery too dark to fully comprehend. Some boundaries, perhaps, are better left uncrossed, some knowledge better left unsought. As Reverend Pierce wrote in his concealed letter, there are sins for which no absolution exists in this world or the next. May God have mercy on the souls of all who were touched by this terrible affair, and may the truth of it remain buried deeper than any grave. In 1969, a graduate student named Margaret Fletcher stumbled upon a reference to the coal case while researching her thesis on antebellum architecture in New Orleans. Her curiosity piqued. She began to compile what scattered documentation remained of the incident. Most official records had mysteriously disappeared from archives, but through personal letters, newspaper clippings, and interviews with elderly residents of the Garden District, Fletcher managed to construct a more complete picture of the events following the discovery of the hidden chamber. According to Fletcher's unpublished research notes, deposited at Tulane University's Special Collections in 1971, at least 3 of the workmen who first entered the underground chamber in 1891 died under unusual circumstances within a year of the discovery. The first, Joseph Landry, was found in his bed, eyes open but unresponsive, similar to the state later experienced by Professor Harrison. He never regained consciousness and died after 17 days. The second, Thomas Miller, disappeared without a trace 3 months after the discovery. The third, Robert Jenkins, reportedly suffered from recurring nightmares so severe that he was committed to the Louisiana State Asylum, where he died of self-inflicted injuries 6 months later. Fletcher's notes contain a transcript of an interview with Jenkins' attending physician at the asylum, Dr. Samuel Graves. In this interview, conducted in 1969 when Graves was in his 90s, the doctor recalled that Jenkins was terrified of falling asleep and would speak of 27 pairs of eyes that watched him constantly. Most disturbing was Jenkins' insistence that he could hear their thoughts, all of them, all at once, begging for release. What happened to these workmen? Were they simply overcome by the psychological impact of their macabre discovery, or did they encounter something more tangible? Fletcher's research suggests the latter. In her notes, she references a journal kept by Dr. William Blackburn, the coroner who examined the remains. This journal, which remained in his family's possession rather than being submitted as official documentation, contains a troubling observation absent from his public report. Upon first contact with the subjects, 3 of my assistants reported a sensation of extreme cold passing through their bodies, followed by what one described as voices, countless voices, all speaking at once. I myself experienced no such phenomenon, yet cannot dismiss their consistent testimony. Fletcher's research also uncovered evidence that Anna Cole may have made attempts to undo whatever her husband had set in motion. Among the papers of Father Michael Donovan, who served at St. Charles Avenue Church from 1848 to 1860, Fletcher found a letter from Anna requesting a blessing of the grounds, particularly the garden area, to provide rest to those who cannot find it naturally. The letter, dated August 1849, makes no explicit reference to the hidden chamber, but implies Anna's growing concern that something unnatural continued to occur on the property. Perhaps most significant among Fletcher's discoveries was a partial manuscript attributed to Benjamin Cole himself. These pages, apparently part of a larger work titled Observations on the Persistence of Consciousness, were found among the personal effects of William Tanner, Cole's former business partner. The manuscript, dated July 1842, contains a disturbing passage. "My preliminary experiments with animals have proven most enlightening. The compound, when administered in precise dosage, induces a state wherein all bodily functions appear to cease while the mind remains active. Subjects remain aware of their surroundings, yet cannot move or communicate by conventional means. Most remarkably, this state appears to be indefinitely sustainable given proper environmental conditions." If Cole's writing is to be taken at face value, it suggests a horrifying possibility that his victims may have been conscious within that sealed chamber, not just for days or weeks, but potentially for years, or even decades. The sophisticated ventilation system, the arrangement of bodies in lifelike poses, the provision of water and food that would never be consumed, all point to Cole creating not a tomb, but a controlled environment for long-term observation. But what was Benjamin Cole hoping to observe? According to Fletcher's research, Cole had developed an intense interest in what he termed the boundaries of mortal existence, following a near-death experience during a yellow fever outbreak in 1837. His private library, catalogued after the discovery of the chamber, included numerous works on ancient Egyptian beliefs regarding the afterlife, Hindu concepts of consciousness, and contemporary European experiments with galvanism and reanimation. Fletcher theorizes that Cole believed he had discovered a method of preserving consciousness beyond the normal boundaries of life, a state of being neither fully alive nor truly dead. His experiment wasn't merely to induce this state, but to study its long-term effects. Did consciousness persist indefinitely? Could it exist without a functioning body? Could it perhaps eventually transcend physical form entirely? These questions might seem the product of a disturbed mind, yet Fletcher uncovered evidence suggesting that Cole's work had attracted attention from certain scientific circles before the events of 1842. Among Cole's papers was correspondence with Dr. Frederick Mortimer, a Philadelphia physician known for his controversial research into states of suspended animation. In one letter dated March 1842, Mortimer writes, "Your theories regarding the separation of mind from bodily function, while heterodox, align with observations I have made during extreme cases of catalepsy. I eagerly await the results of your continued experiments." Margaret Fletcher's investigation came to an abrupt end in December 1970. According to Tulane University records, she requested access to certain restricted materials in the Louisiana Historical Society's collection relating to the Cole case. 3 days later, she withdrew from her graduate program and reportedly left New Orleans. Attempts by university officials to contact her were unsuccessful. Her collected research materials were donated to Tulane by her landlady, who claimed Fletcher had departed in the middle of the night, leaving most of her personal belongings behind. In 1972, renovations at one of the Prytania Street homes built over the former Cole property uncovered a small metal container buried beneath the foundation. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a letter in what experts identified as Anna Cole's handwriting. The letter, addressed simply to those who come after, contained a troubling warning. What lies beneath cannot be disturbed without consequence. 27 souls remain suspended between worlds by my husband's hand. I have tried to grant them peace through prayer and ritual, but their consciousness persists. They are aware. They are suffering, and they are hungry for release. Seal what has been opened, forget what has been found. Some states of being were never meant for human experience. This letter was submitted to the Louisiana Historical Society, but was reported missing from their collection when researchers attempted to examine it in 1980. The only remaining evidence of its existence is a photograph taken by the homeowner before the document was surrendered to authorities. In the years following Fletcher's abandoned research, the Cole case faded once again from public awareness. Occasional references appeared in books on New Orleans history or anthologies of Southern Gothic tales, but always as a minor footnote, the details increasingly distorted by time and retelling. Yet for those few who continued to investigate the case, disturbing patterns emerged. Dr. James Holbrook, a parapsychologist who attempted to research the case in 1983, noted that many who delved deeply into the Cole incident reported similar experiences: vivid dreams of being trapped in darkness, sensations of being watched, and in some cases, auditory hallucinations described as many voices speaking at once, just below the threshold of comprehension. Holbrook himself abandoned his research after experiencing what he termed severe night terrors that persisted for months. In 1988, during extensive renovations to one of the Prytania Street properties, workers discovered a section of old foundation that appeared to be part of the original Cole mansion. According to their foreman's report, the stone was unusually cold to the touch, despite the summer heat, a detail eerily similar to reports from 1958. More disturbing was the account of one worker who, after handling a particular stone, experienced a vision of a room full of people, sitting perfectly still, their eyes following my every movement. This worker left the site and refused to return. The renovation was completed without further incident, but the property's new owners reported unusual phenomena almost immediately upon taking residence. According to an interview published in the Times-Picayune's New Orleans Mysteries feature in 1990, the family experienced cold spots that persist regardless of the season, sounds of whispered conversations with no discernible source, and most disturbingly episodes where time seems to stop, moments where everything freezes and a profound silence descends, lasting for seconds or sometimes minutes. The family remained in the home for only 7 months before selling at a significant loss. Subsequent owners reported similar experiences. Though less severe, the property changed hands 3 times between 1990 and 1996, an unusual turnover rate for the desirable garden district. In 2001, Hurricane Allison caused significant flooding in parts of New Orleans. Among the areas affected was the section of Prytania Street built over the former Cole property. In the aftermath, residents reported an unusual phenomenon: a perfect circle of ground, approximately 40 feet in diameter, that remained completely dry despite the surrounding saturation. This circle corresponded almost exactly to the location where the underground chamber had been discovered a century earlier. Soil samples taken from this area revealed no obvious explanation for its water-repellent properties. According to the analysis conducted by Louisiana State University's Department of Geological Sciences, the soil composition was consistent with surrounding areas. The report noted, however, that the samples exhibited unusual thermal properties, maintaining a temperature several degrees below ambient regardless of external conditions. The report offered no explanation for this anomaly. In 2005, just months before Hurricane Katrina would forever alter the landscape of New Orleans, a final disturbing chapter was added to the Cole saga. Construction workers installing new water lines along Prytania Street uncovered what appeared to be a portion of the original ventilation system for the underground chamber. According to their report, one of the workers reached into the exposed section of pipe and felt something grab his hand. He withdrew immediately and refused to continue working at the site. City officials quickly covered the exposed area and rerouted the planned water line. No official explanation was given, but rumors circulated among local residents that sounds had been heard coming from the exposed pipe. Sounds described as whispering voices, too many to count, all speaking at once. Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans on August 29, 2005. The resulting devastation forever altered the city's physical and cultural landscape. Among the many buildings damaged or destroyed was the Louisiana Historical Society, where many of the remaining documents related to the cold case had been stored. These materials, along with countless other historical records, were lost to flooding and subsequent mold. In the years of rebuilding that followed, the cold case receded even further from public memory. New Orleans had more immediate concerns than a century-old mystery, however disturbing its implications. Yet for those who have studied the case in detail, questions remain. What exactly did Benjamin Cole do to those 27 people? Did their consciousness persist long after their bodies should have died? And most troubling of all, does something of that consciousness remain trapped beneath the elegant homes of Prytania Street? The most recent development in this long and disturbing saga occurred in 2017. During installation of fiber optic cables in the Garden District, workers reported unusual equipment malfunctions near the former Cole property. Digital signals became corrupted, containing what engineers described as patterns too regular to be random interference, but not matching any known communication protocol. A sound technician, reviewing audio recorded near the site, claimed to have isolated what sounded like human voices within the electronic noise, though this claim has never been independently verified. Today, the elegant homes along Prytania Street give no indication of the darkness that once unfolded on that ground. Tourists stroll past, admiring the classic southern architecture, unaware of what may still lie beneath their feet. The Cole mansion is long gone, the hidden chamber sealed and built over, the documents scattered or lost to time. Yet something of that boundary Benjamin Cole crossed perhaps remains, an echo of his terrible experiment, a ripple in the fabric of reality that continues to this day. For those 27 souls taken on that October night in 1842, we may hope that death eventually brought the release Benjamin Cole's experiment denied them. Yet the persistent reports of unusual phenomena at the site suggest a more troubling possibility, that something of their consciousness remains, trapped in that liminal state Cole sought to explore, neither fully alive nor truly dead. As the New Orleans dusk settles over the Garden District and shadows lengthen across Prytania Street, one might pause and listen carefully. In the spaces between the sounds of the living city, in the momentary silences between heartbeats, there is perhaps another sound just below the threshold of hearing, many voices speaking all at once, still waiting for release. This is the true horror of the Cole case. Not merely the act itself, monstrous as it was, but the possibility that its consequences continue to reverberate through time, that the boundary Benjamin Cole crossed remains crossed, that some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed again. As Anna Cole wrote in her final warning, some states of being were never meant for human experience. We would do well to heed her words. There are boundaries we were not meant to cross, knowledge we were not meant to possess. The tragedy of Benjamin Cole's victims stands as a stark reminder of the price paid when human hubris ignores these fundamental truths. The property where the Cole plantation once stood remains privately owned, divided now into several elegant residences. Their owners come and go, some staying for decades, others departing after only months. Few know the full story of what occurred on that ground nearly 2 centuries ago. Perhaps that is for the best. Some histories are too dark to confront directly, some knowledge too dangerous to pursue. Yet the past is never truly buried in a city like New Orleans, where history seeps upward through the soil like groundwater rising after rain. What happened at the coal plantation in 1842 continues to echo, however faintly, in the present day. A whisper from that underground chamber where 27 souls were trapped between life and death, their consciousness preserved beyond its natural bounds through one man's terrible experiment. For those who have studied the coal case in depth, there remains a disturbing question. If consciousness can indeed persist beyond the normal boundaries of life, as Benjamin Cole believed, what becomes of it when finally released? Does it simply dissipate? Like smoke in wind, does it move on to whatever natural fate awaits all consciousness after death? Or might it persist in some other form, shaped by the trauma of its unnatural preservation? These questions have no answers, at least none that living minds can comprehend. Perhaps that uncertainty is itself the final horror of the Cole case, the suggestion that there are states of being so far beyond our understanding that we cannot even properly conceive of them, let alone prepare for them. As night falls fully over New Orleans' Garden District and the old oak trees cast their long shadows across Prytania Street, the elegant homes stand silent, their windows glowing with warm light against the darkness. Life continues as it must, above the ground, where Benjamin Cole conducted his terrible experiment. Yet in the silence between heartbeats, in the shadows between moments, perhaps something else continues as well, an echo of consciousness preserved beyond its natural bounds, a ripple in reality that never fully subsides. Some say that in the darkest hours of night, when the city finally sleeps and silence descends on Prytania Street, one might hear the faintest sound rising from beneath the manicured lawns and historic homes. Many voices, speaking all at once, just below the threshold of comprehension. They speak of darkness and awareness, of time stretched beyond meaning, of consciousness without body or release. They speak of Benjamin Cole's ultimate success and most terrible failure, the preservation of mind beyond the merciful release of death. For the residents of Prytania Street, these are merely stories, urban legends born of the city's Gothic imagination. For those who have studied the Cole case, they are something more, a warning that some boundaries exist for a reason, that some knowledge comes at too high a price, that some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed again. The coal plantation is gone now, consumed by time and progress and natural disaster. The hidden chamber has been sealed and built over, its location marked only by the occasional cold spot, the momentary failure of electronic equipment, the whispered conversations no one quite hears. Yet something of what Benjamin Cole set in motion that autumn night in 1842 perhaps remains, a ripple in the fabric of reality, a boundary crossed that can never be uncrossed, a terrible knowledge pursued that can never be unknown. As Reverend Pierce wrote in his concealed letter, there are sins for which no absolution exists in this world or the next. Let us hope, for the sake of those 27 souls, that he was wrong.